A lone human fighter sliced through the void, dancing between the shattered hulls of a once mighty armada. In a matter of minutes, Captain Craig King had done the impossible. He had single-handedly neutralized the entire Ullian invasion force sent to crush humanity. King's miraculous victory sent shockwaves through the Galactic Empire, sparking whispers of rebellion among the downtrodden and striking fear into the hearts of the powerful. The Empire's supreme commander Volar seethed with rage upon hearing of the defeat, vowing to hunt down the upstart human pilot and make an example of him. But for now, King focused on getting his squadron safely back to base. His mind raced as he tried to process the enormity of what he'd just accomplished. By exploiting a critical vulnerability in the Ullians' shield harmonics, he had turned the tables on an enemy that should have easily overwhelmed him. As they flew back through hyperspace, King couldn't shake the feeling that his actions today were just the beginning of something much bigger. He had no way of knowing that he had just lit the spark of a revolution that would reshape the galaxy forever. All he knew was that for the first time in centuries, humanity had a fighting chance against the Ullian threat. The journey home passed in a blur, King's adrenaline slowly fading as the magnitude of the day's events began to sink in. When they finally touched down at the base, he was greeted by a sea of stunned faces. His fellow pilots, the command staff, even the normally unflappable brass seemed to be in a state of disbelief. As King stepped out of his fighter, the base erupted in a cacophony of cheers and applause. Pilots, technicians, and officers alike swarmed around him, their faces a mix of awe, disbelief, and unbridled joy. The young captain found himself engulfed in a sea of backslaps, handshakes, and tearful embraces. Admiral Jenna Forrester, the grizzled commander of the human resistance, pushed her way through the crowd. She gripped King's shoulder, her eyes gleaming with a fierce pride. "You did it, son. You gave us a fighting chance." King met her gaze, exhaustion and elation warring within him. "We did it, Admiral. All of us. This is just the beginning." The celebrations were cut short by the chirp of a priority message on Forrester's comm unit. Her face grew grim as she read the contents. "It seems your victory has stirred up a hornet's nest, Captain. The Ullians are on the move." Over the next several days, reports flooded in from across the Empire. On Gora Prime, a daring sabotage mission led by a female Goran named Lyra had crippled a key Ullian munitions factory. Whispers of rebellion spread like wildfire, long oppressed species rising up against their overlords. King found himself at the center of a growing storm. The Ullians had placed a massive bounty on his head, and he narrowly evaded capture by the ruthless enforcer Zalcor on multiple occasions. Yet even as he fought for his life, King knew he had to press the advantage. When Lyra reached out to the human resistance, offering vital intel in exchange for aid, King saw an opportunity. Armed with the location of a critical Ullian supply depot, he led a daring raid, exploiting weaknesses in their defenses. The mission was a resounding success, yielding a cache of advanced weaponry and dealing another humiliating blow to the Empire. As more alien factions rallied to the cause, King found an unlikely ally in Sivrai, a cunning Zerelian information broker. She brought evidence of a secret Ullian research facility developing a devastating new weapon capable of crushing the rebellion in its infancy. King and Lyra began planning a joint operation to infiltrate the facility and sabotage the weapon. But their plans were thrown into disarray when Zalcor managed to capture Sivrai and extract the location of their hidden base. Ullian forces descended on the rebel stronghold like a tidal wave. Outnumbered and outgunned, King knew their only hope was to buy time for the others to escape. In a last desperate gamble, he challenged Zalcor to single combat. The two warriors clashed in a brutal hand-to-hand battle, their personal duel a microcosm of the larger war engulfing the galaxy. Though battered and bloodied, King's skill and persistence won out. With a final savage blow, he struck down the Ullian enforcer. As the dust settled, the rebels emerged from the ruins of their base, bloodied but unbroken. King watched as they scattered to the stars, each tasked with building alliances and gathering resources for the long fight ahead. Amidst the chaos, a chilling revelation emerged, whispers of a shadowy figure pulling the strings of the Empire from behind the scenes. As King found himself at the center of a growing web of intrigue, he took a moment to steel himself for the challenges to come. The war was just the beginning, but for the first time in generations, hope burned bright, and he would ensure that flame was never extinguished. King's victory against the Ullians had ignited a spark of hope, but that spark now threatened to sputter out in the face of mounting challenges. The rebel base bustled with activity as fighters from various species hurried about their tasks, but an undercurrent of tension permeated the air. In the command center, King stood before a holographic display of their recent strike locations, his brow furrowed in concentration. Lyra approached, her scaled skin gleaming under the harsh lights. "Another successful hit on their supply lines," she reported. But it's not enough," King finished, his voice weary. "I know." A commotion outside drew their attention. Through the viewport, they saw a crowd gathering around two figures locked in heated argument. King recognized the towering form of Soren, the Goran warrior's scarred face contorted in anger as he squared off against a human pilot. "Not again," Lyra muttered as they hurried outside. They arrived just in time to hear Soren's growling voice. "We bleed and die while the Ullians grow stronger. How many more must we lose before we see reason?" King pushed through the crowd. "Stand down, both of you," he ordered, fixing Soren with a piercing stare. "This isn't helping anyone." Soren whirled to face him, eyes blazing. "And what is helping, human? Your foolish crusade? The Ullians have ruled for centuries. We should salvage what we can before they crush us completely. So we should just roll over and accept their boot on our necks?" King shot back, stepping closer. "Is that the legacy you want to leave?" Soren's massive fist clenched, and for a moment it seemed he might strike. Lyra darted between them, her voice sharp. "Enough! We're all on edge, but this solves nothing." The tension held for a heartbeat before Soren's shoulders slumped. He stalked away without another word, leaving a wake of uneasy murmurs. King watched him go, a knot forming in his stomach. He turned to address the assembled rebels, searching for words to bolster their flagging spirits. Before he could speak, an urgent call came over the base's comm system. "Captain King, priority message incoming. It's from an Ullian." The command center erupted into a flurry of activity as King and his inner circle gathered around the communications array. A hologram flickered to life, revealing the angular features of an Ullian male. "I am Taknar," the figure announced, his voice resonating with the peculiar harmonics of his species. "Once, I served in Supreme Commander Volar's inner circle. Now I seek asylum with your rebellion." King's eyes narrowed. "And why should we trust you?" Taknar's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Because I bring you the key to toppling the Empire. In 3 standard days, Volar and the High Command will gather at a secret installation to plan your demise. I can give you its location." As Taknar outlined the defenses protecting this hidden base, King's mind raced with possibilities. This could be the decisive stroke they needed, a chance to decapitate the Ullian leadership in one fell swoop. But even as hope bloomed, caution tempered his enthusiasm. King turned to Sivrai, the Zarelian information broker. "I want every scrap of intel you can dig up on Taknar. If this is legitimate, we need to move fast. If it's a trap..." Sivrai nodded, her multifaceted eyes glinting. "I'll put my network to work immediately." As the rebels sprang into action, formulating plans and preparing for a possible assault, King found a quiet moment alone. He stared out at the stars, feeling the weight of countless lives resting on his next decision. One way or another, the fate of the rebellion, and perhaps the galaxy itself, would be decided in the coming days. King's fingers danced across the controls of his fighter, expertly maneuvering through the debris field left in the wake of their latest skirmish with Ullian forces. The rebel fleet limped along behind him, battered but unbroken. As he guided them towards the ancient wormhole gate that promised sanctuary, a decision took a toll on his mind. The encrypted transmission from Alara burned in his consciousness. An underground resistance within the Empire itself? It seemed too good to be true, yet the potential to unravel the truth behind the Galactic Empire's power was too tempting to ignore. With a deep breath, King opened a secure channel to Admiral Forrester. "Admiral, I'm picking up some interference. Request permission to scout ahead and ensure our path is clear." There was a moment of static before Forrester's gruff voice came through. "Granted, Captain, but don't stray too far. We can't afford to lose you now." "Understood," King replied, already plotting his course. As he veered away from the fleet, guilt gnawed at him for the deception. But if Alara's claims were true, this risk could change everything. The coordinates led him to a remote system, far from any charted worlds. As King approached, his sensors detected a massive asteroid shrouded in powerful energy fields. He transmitted the provided access codes, and a narrow aperture opened in the shielding. King's eyes widened as he piloted his craft into the asteroid's interior. What he found defied belief. An entire city carved into the rock, teeming with life and advanced technology. Thousands of aliens from across the Empire moved with purpose through research labs and what appeared to be intelligence centers. A striking female Aurelian with piercing violet eyes met him as he disembarked. "Captain King," she said, her melodic voice carrying an undercurrent of authority. "I am Alara. Welcome to the heart of the Illuminators." As they walked through the bustling corridors, Alara explained the true history of the Empire. "The Ullians' rise was orchestrated," she revealed. "For centuries, we've guided their development, planting the seeds of knowledge and technology." King's mind reeled at the implications. Why? To what end? Alara's eyes gleamed with fervor. To unite the galaxy under a single rule. It was to be the first step towards the Great Reckoning, an event that will reshape the very fabric of civilization. She led him to a vast chamber filled with holographic displays. But the Ullians corrupted our vision. Their lust for power twisted our careful plans into an empire of brutality and oppression. King studied the data flowing across the screens, pieces falling into place. "So now you want to tear it all down?" "With your help," Alara nodded. "Together we can expose the truth and build a new order. But you must submit to our authority. Become our agent in what comes after." Before King could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Screens flashed to life, showing Ullian warships emerging from hyperspace. At their head was Supreme Commander Volar's personal dreadnought. "Impossible," Alara hissed. "We're compromised." Chaos erupted as elite Ullian shock troops breached the asteroid's defenses. King and Alara raced through the corridors, dodging weapons fire and collapsing bulkheads. "The archive!" Alara shouted over the din of battle. "We can't let it fall into Ullian hands." They fought their way to a heavily fortified vault. As Alara worked to release the locks, a stray blast caught her in the side. She stumbled, pressing a data core into King's hands. "The truth, the archives, you must keep it alive," she gasped, her violet eyes boring into his. Then she was gone. King had no time to mourn. Clutching the precious data core, he battled his way to the hangar. And sleek Illuminator's stealth ship stood ready, its systems already primed for launch. As he rocketed away from the doomed asteroid, King watched in horror as Volar's ships unleashed a devastating bioweapon. All life within was extinguished in a matter of moments, erasing any trace of the Illuminator's existence. Heart-pounding, King pushed the stealth ship to its limits, barely evading Volar's patrols as he raced back to rendezvous with the rebel fleet. His mind whirled with the weight of what he'd learned, and the responsibility that now rested solely on his shoulders. He found the rebels on the edge of the system, preparing for their final jump through the wormhole gate. As King relayed Alara's revelations and the few surviving Illuminators corroborated his story, a fire ignited in the eyes of his fellow rebels. "The Ullians' supremacy is built on lies," King declared, holding up the data core. "And the key to unraveling it all may lie with the ancients who built these wormhole gates." Admiral Forrester's weathered face set in unshakable focus. "Then that's our next move. But first, we need to reach Sanctuary." Alarms blared as Volar's fleet dropped out of hyperspace, weapons already charging. With no time left for debate, King took the lead. "All ships prepare for wormhole jump," he ordered, guiding the battered rebel fleet towards their last hope for survival, and their first step towards bringing the fight to the very heart of the Empire. The wormhole stretched before them, a swirling vortex of blues and purples that promised salvation. King's fingers tightened on the controls as he led the battered rebel fleet towards their last hope. "All ships, prepare for transit," he barked over the comms. "Maintain formation and—" His words were cut short as Volar's dreadnought unleashed a barrage of energy weapons. The rebel ships scattered, desperately evading the onslaught as they plunged into the wormhole's maw. Reality twisted and warped around them. King's fighters shuddered violently, threatening to tear apart at the seams. Then, with a final lurch, they burst into normal space. For a moment, hope swelled in King's chest as he beheld the sanctuary world. A pristine blue-green orb hung before them, untouched by the ravages of war. But that hope was short-lived. "Multiple contacts!" Sivrai's voice crackled over the comms, tight with alarm. "Stealth signatures all across the system." King's blood ran cold as Ulian warships decloaked around them, weapons already charging. They'd walked right into Volar's trap. "Evasive maneuvers," Admiral Forrester roared. "Get those civilian ships to the surface." The system erupted into chaos. Rebel fighters swarmed to intercept Ulian bombers as they dove towards the fleeing transports. King's craft wove through the melee, his targeting computer singing as he picked off enemy fighters. But it wasn't enough. For every Ulian ship they destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. King watched helplessly as rebel vessels were torn apart by concentrated fire. "We can't hold them off," Lyra's voice cut through the din of battle. "King, we need to evacuate while we still can." King's eyebrows furrowed as he surveyed the carnage around them. Fleeing meant certain death, a slow, grinding war of attrition they couldn't hope to win. His eyes locked onto the ancient wormhole gate, its structure pulsing with otherworldly energy. "Negative," he growled. "We take that gate or we die trying. It's our only shot." Without waiting for a response, King vectored his fighter towards the massive structure. "I need a strike team. We're boarding that gate." A handful of ships fell into formation behind him as he rocketed towards their target. Ulian turbolasers filled space with searing green death, but King's unorthodox maneuvers kept them just ahead of the barrage. "Brace for impact," he shouted as they hurtled towards the gate's central spire. The boarding craft slammed into the structure with bone-jarring force, crumpling on impact but leaving its occupants alive. King staggered from the wreckage, plasma rifle at the ready. The corridors of the ancient gate thrummed with power, its alien architecture a maze of twisting passageways. But they had no time to marvel at its wonders. Ulian shock troops poured from side passages, their battle cries echoing off the metallic walls. King's team responded with a hail of weapons fire, pushing forward inch by bloody inch. "We need to reach the control nexus," King shouted over the din of combat. "Sivrai, what have you got?" The Zarelian's multifaceted eyes flickered rapidly as she interfaced with her datapad. 2 levels up, central chamber. But the security protocols— "We'll deal with that when we get there," King cut her off, ducking as a plasma bolt sizzled overhead. "Move!" They fought their way upward, leaving a trail of Ulian corpses in their wake. But the cost was high. King watched as good soldiers, friends, fell to enemy fire. When they finally reached the nexus, it was a slaughterhouse. Ulian guardians defended the massive computer core with fanatic persistence. King's strike team was whittled down to a handful of survivors by the time they secured the chamber. "Sivrai, do your thing!" King ordered, laying down suppressing fire as more Ulian troops converged on their position. The Zarelian's fingers flew across the alien interface, her eyes wide with concentration. "Uploading virus package now. But King, there's something else here. Data on other gates, advanced tech. It could change everything." "Download what you can," King grunted, felling another Ulian with a well-placed shot. "But our priority is control. We need to—" A scream of agony cut him off. He turned to see Krent, Soren's son, crumpled to the ground, a smoking hole in his chest. "No!" King roared, but there was no time to mourn. The Ulians were at the threshold and Lyra lay wounded, clutching her side as she struggled to maintain fire. "It's done!" Sivrai shouted. "We have control!" King's fingers flew across the comms. All ships, this is King. Prepare for immediate jump. We're destabilizing the gate. He input the commands, watching as gravimetric waves rippled outward. The pursuing Ulian fleet, caught unprepared, was torn apart by the surging energies. But they had no time to savor the victory. With Lyra barely conscious and Krent's body cradled in Sivrai's arms, they staggered back to what remained of their ships. As they limped away from the inferno that had once been their sanctuary, King stared out at the star-flecked void. They were adrift now, their destination unknown. But they were alive, and they had struck a devastating blow against Volar's regime. Yet even as a glimmer of hope burned in his chest, a chill ran down King's spine. Had they truly outsmarted the Ulians? Or were they all merely pawns in some greater cosmic game?
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.